Welcome to the Story Tinker podcast, a place for in-depth analysis of Webtoon stories. Co-hosted by sharp, witty, and dare I say, thirsty fans, we dive deep into every episode, analyzing character struggles, relationship development, and of course, theories. You can follow the Story Tinker on YouTube, podcast platforms, and social media. For bonus content, sneak peeks, and more, you can support the Story Tinker on Patreon. We are really appreciative of your likes, subscribes, and follows on all platforms. Thank you for listening to the Story Tinker, and let's get started.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the podcast on Sass and Sass on Story Tinker. And today we have Krystine and Laura, who have been on before, and we have Chewie, who has not. So do each want to say a sentence to introduce yourselves and your other creative pursuits? We'll start with you, Krystine.
Okay. Hi, I'm Krystine. I'm 33 now. I'm 33 now. I work as a baker, and I've just been obsessed with webtoons for the longest time. But I did study music. Like, I've been trained as a singer like my whole life. Studied music from high school into college. Didn't finish it, but I've been analyzing music. So this webtoon is like right up my alley.
So cool, because Victor does like a lot of specific music terms and I don't know anything about.
You're like, what?
I mean, like, it sounds great, but I have no idea like how authentic it is. So does it, when you read it, was it like, oh, spot on? Nice.
I think the creator
and Laura
has
were like,
background. Yeah, I follow her on Instagram, so like I think she has a music background too.
Oh, the music too. We'll talk about that, but the music background is like,
Okay, awesome. We'll make that a topic.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, Chewie?
I guess I'll go next. I'm Laura. I have my cat Chloe in my lap right now, and I work as a music teacher, a private music teacher, and a music therapist. And I really love this webtoon. The music is really delightful, and yeah, all of the music theory terms and stuff in it. I'm like, yeah. They know what they're talking about. Yeah, it's all spot on. Yeah.
And we also have a podcast, which anyone who
yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. I also have a podcast called Laura Asks About Motherhood. So if anyone listening is a mom and wants to talk about their experiences of being a mom, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yep, links will be below. And Chewie.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chewie. I am 16. Yes, I am 16. I'm obviously a student. I don't really have anything interesting. Like don't have a career or anything, but I am the host of the 𝗖𝗵𝗲𝗀 podcast. So it's for all things 𝗖𝗵𝗲, theories, discussions. It updates weekly, like right after the regular episode updates. So after you read it, you can go check out the podcast and like listen to our thoughts on it. Yeah, I'm literally just obsessed with 𝗖𝗵𝗲, but I do read other comics, including Sass and Sass, because 𝗖𝗵𝗲 is very depressing. So I need some sort of happy comics to like offset it. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I always listen to your podcast, and I also love the posts that you post on Instagram, like the little summaries. I happen to be like a reader kind of person, and I like it with the pictures, and like the graphics are really nice. So I like both of them. They're a good set.
Thank you.
All right, so Sass and Sass. So I guess, I don't know if each of us should give a little summary, because it'd be interesting to see what we think, is the most important part. But basically, it starts out with Camille, and she's this high school student. She falls into a band and decides she loves it. And then it's all about like her history with the band and the different conflicts and relationships, and everyone in the story who has their own conflict. So that's like in a super nutshell, the story. So I guess, should we start with Camille? And let's discuss, first of all, her personality. How would you describe her personality?
Enthusiastic.
bubbly.
Yeah. Honestly, like literally radiant. Like even from her character design, she's like the sun. She's like always glowing. It's very cute. Also, why did I think her name was Camilla? Like, did I get
Yeah,
Is it
Camilla.
Camille or Camilla?
Oops, sorry.
Wait, hold on, let me check.
Yeah, Camilla. They're very similar names. And I know people who say Camilla.
Yeah.
I mean, like not in this webcomic, but I know people who are Camilla, but it's Camilla. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the 2 L's, yeah.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't sound like I'm defending myself for my poor reading, but like to me, my sister-in-law is Martine and Martina. Like to me, it's the same thing. Like whether it's just an E or A, it's just a an accident of how you decide. So, anyways.
I didn't want to come amongst it. I was like,
or memory. Okay, it was, but so yeah. So she's super enthusiastic, and one of the funniest things that drew me in when I first read it was when she was like, "Oh, band, I love it. It's so amazing. It's so exciting." And she sees Victor and she gets like really inspired by his music playing. And she's like, wow, it's so beautiful. And I know I've definitely felt that way. You too, since you're music people, I'm sure you for sure felt that way. But I really related to that. And then she like jumps in and, and her friends are like, well, I don't know if she's gonna really last because she always like has these hobbies and she doesn't last long. And I was like, oh gosh, this sounds just like me when I was a little younger. Before I kind of realized that you have to limit yourself. But did you guys relate to that where, you jump into hobbies and then like you don't always have the passion or the time to finish with them?
Yep. I know for me, like I learned how to play the piano. Laura, I'm pretty sure you can attest to this. It is the most frustrating instrument you could learn to play.
Piano?
Yeah, well, for me, because like I can read the notes, but like telling my fingers to play those notes, it's like you're seeing what you need to play, but your fingers are like, nope. It's the most frustrating thing, but I love the piano. Like my aunt was used to be a concert pianist, and like music runs in my family, so it's just, yeah, I wish I could play the piano. I don't have time. I don't have the patience.
I know, that's one of the sad realities of life. When I was like, I want to do all the things, but I only have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
I can't do all the things, but all these things sound like so much fun. But that's interesting. You find piano well, maybe it's my bias. Piano is my first instrument. I love the piano. I feel like violin is way more frustrating. Even trumpet.
Oh,
so Camilla plays trumpet. Trumpet is hard. You only have 3 buttons.
I played violin too. That's even more frustrating. And it does not sound pretty in the beginning.
No, violin is really easy to make sound terrible.
Yeah, it's nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, how did my mom put up with that when I was practicing?
Yeah, so she starts out with that. And then one of the things that I really found interesting was that, she's first very excited. And then she kind of hits that moment where Mrs. P describes it as like the honeymoon's over, where now your passion is kind of like dwindling. And now you have to decide, are you going to put in the time? And I thought that was such a mature theme. And like, to me, the strength of this comic is that, Chewie, you were saying it sounds lighthearted, but I feel like it's so deceptively lighthearted because it's cheerful and the colors are very bright and there's a lot of like cutesy graphics, and the way that's drawn is very cute, and the big eyes. But I feel like it really touches on important topics. There's so many and we're going to get into them as we get into each character, but they're just because the comic is portrayed as lighthearted, I think that it undercuts the really serious issues that it addresses. And to me, like that issue of like having to put a lot of time into something in order to be good at it, even when your heart is not feeling it right now. I mean, that's like one of the most important realizations you can come to as an adult, at least for me. I don't know how you guys felt, but I was like, whoa, this is like a super profound lesson.
Yeah, I definitely, I felt that way when I decided to pursue baking as my career. Because I knew like I always loved doing it. I love baking for people. That's like, it's one of my favorite things to do, to give as like Christmas gifts, like homemade baked goods. But like, so when I started going to school and like learning like the actual like profession of it and started working, I was like, okay, this is where like I still love it, but like I realize now that, there's that work side of it. The side that like, oh, this kind of stinks. It's like, oh yeah, you're baking, but it's also like you're cleaning a lot. a lot. You're touching some pretty dirty stuff a lot.
I think that's the hard part, when you realize that stuff takes work. It's not all just fun and games. It's not always super enjoyable, that you sometimes have to muck through things. Yeah, but speaking as someone who has mucked through, like I wanted to quit piano when I was in like 4th, 5th, 6th grade. My mom would not let that happen. So even though I didn't put a whole lot of work into it as my sort of way to rebel, I like mucked my way through it, and now I love it. It's like, it's what Mrs. P said, like the pendulum kind of swings back and forth. Sometimes you're really feeling it, and sometimes it's drudgery, but you know, it kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah, so Camille, that's one of the lessons that she learns, and she recommits herself. Like there's a time where she feels like she doubts herself, she doesn't know if she should do it, but then she does realize she loves it and she recommits herself. Now, another interesting theme is that Camille kind of walks the fine line between doing it and having fun and wanting to get better. And I feel like that's a conflict for her, and she kind of feels differently about it at different times, because you know, we see she has like a role model in Victor. Now, Victor has a very kind of unhealthy relationship with music, which I want to get into later, but she has that side where she does want to have fun, and she recognizes that it's important to have fun and not to take it too seriously, but she also wants to improve and get better. And it's a little bit of a struggle for her. I feel like she goes back and forth with that. Anyway, so does anyone want to talk about what Camille's challenges are? And she goes through a couple of them, but like, anyone want to take a stab at some of them? What are the ones that jumped out at you?
She's very like optimistic, like almost blindly optimistic.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I don't know. Okay, you tell. Where do you think it comes across like as a big problem? In
just when she's like, oh yeah, like I can totally learn how to play the trumpet, like no problem, like I can do it, like not realizing like, you know, it takes effort. And also recently with her like, oh yeah, me and Victor are gonna save like, you know, band, we can totally do this.
Yeah, and I like that you said that it's both her strength and her weakness, because that optimism is what makes people, you know, she gets people to join the band in the beginning. She's excited about the different fundraisers that they do, and she, you know, she's the kind of like a people motivator. But at the blind optimism, to me, it's a challenge in her relationship with Rohan. You know, I want to pick up that thread. Chewie, I don't know if you want to talk about it.
I have a lot of thoughts on Rohan. I feel like my opinion of this has changed over time, because like I felt like we saw a lot of him through Camilla's lens and not through like his own lens and like seeing his own experiences. Like I've grown a lot more sympathetic to him, especially like in recent episodes where we saw how he was discouraged from pursuing his hobbies and passions, you know. I did want to talk about the fact that the problem with Camilla's optimism sometimes is that like she means very well, but when she fails, she takes it personally. She's like, oh, this is my fault. This is like I'm a bad person. But really it was just that like, I don't want to be mean, but she wasn't like farsighted. She didn't like think that this was inevitably not going to work. It's like not her own fault. It's just like how this whole thing was set up.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong point. And yeah, because she was like kind of pushing through. She had doubts in the beginning. Like we know she didn't see Rohan as a romantic interest. Like he was a good friend. And then when he asked her, she was, okay, I'll give it a chance. You know, why not? And she was honest with him about that. She's like, okay. But it was her optimism that made her keep pushing through, even though, like you said, like the signs were there that it wasn't really compatible. And she was just so positive, and she was like, it has to work, you know, like he's a good guy and I'm a good girl, good, you know, good person, like of course this has to work. And right, like when it didn't, because of really Rohan's reasons, not her reasons, you know, she blamed herself. So yeah, what do you think of their relationship?
Me?
Anyone?
I'm not gonna say anything because I haven't like made up my mind.
Okay.
I think it's super sweet. I think Rohan is very sweet and tries to be understanding in the beginning, but his depression like makes it really hard to be able to communicate, and he like seems to kind of cling on to her a little bit too much. And it doesn't help that she had to start working, because around the same time that they started dating, she found out that, was it her mom or her dad that lost their job?
I think her mom.
Her mom lost her job, and so she was like, I might not be able to continue band anymore. And so she was just had very limited time overall. So I don't know, I just feel like it's a really realistic relationship, especially a high school one, where it's like super cutesy, and they didn't even like, did they hold hands maybe once? You know, it was very innocent.
I think it can be cute for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an interesting point that you brought up, like his depression. And this is the last time I'm going to mention 𝗷𝗵𝗲𝗀. I'm so sorry, but it reminded me of 𝗏, because like Rohan like has like his siblings were so awful to him. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, trust me, like as like the older sibling, like sometimes your parents will take your younger siblings' issues out on you, so then you become resentful, you know? But like they were just awful. Like, I'm sorry, it's okay to be annoyed with your younger sibling, but it's not okay to like take out your anger on them. Like that, like I just like cannot believe, I was like getting so angry when I was reading that episode, because like that's so unfair to him. Like you took away everything he loved, and like not everyone's built for school. Like, I'm sorry, like 3 C's is not like the end of the world. Like, you know, some people are just not into that, and that's okay. And like I understand now why Rohan is like the way he is now, because everything he loved was like taken away from him, and like that's awful. But I hope he really like comes back to the stuff he loves, and I hope he stops like whitewashing his name. Like
yeah, that's a really good point, that he felt like he had to be more white to fit in, and to kind of like separate himself more from his family. And yeah, that's really sad. It's really sad. And it's really sad that he said when he did change his name from Rohan to Rowan, that he stopped getting picked on so much. He was left alone a little bit more.
Yeah,
that's
like,
really sad.
It seems like such a trivial thing, but like 𝗏 also changed his name to Yoongi. Like the way like you present yourself is very much like people will definitely treat you like differently. And it's sad too, because like I'm not the same ethnicity, but part of like the same region that Rohan is from. And Rohan is a very romantic name. And like his last name is Singh, and like Singhs are like known to be like warriors. Like they have like such a rich history and like very cool culture. And it's like just really sad to like watch him like distance himself from it.
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking about a certain college that I went to, and it was at that place that so I grew up Jewish. I am Jewish. I grew up ultra Orthodox, and for a while, and then I kind of left being ultra Orthodox. Now I'm just modern Orthodox, and that was a big part of my journey. Like, oh, I'm not like that, and I rejected that part of my youth, my community. And for a while, I was a little bit embarrassed of like how I grew up, because it's very different. It's very fundamentalist in many ways, and I left it for a reason. I didn't like it, many parts of it. But I remember when I went to my master's program, there were people from all over in the program. And I always kind of felt like I was different, right? I was, oh, I'm the only one who grew up that way. And then I went to the master's program. There were people from all over, like Asia, and not so much in Europe, but like there are many wild different parts of Asia and different cultures within America. And I was like, wait, I'm not the only different one. I was like, everyone here is different, and that's good. I was like, that's awesome. I love hearing about people, their different cultures, their different values, and I was like, this is fantastic. And I stopped being embarrassed. And then I was like, and now I talk about it all the time. Like I used to never talk about it. And now I'm like, every podcast, I feel like I mentioned something about the way I grew up, So yeah, at some point, it's great. That's another thing about being like, I think growing up from being a teenager, and then when you grow older, is that at some point you stop being embarrassed about the things that you think make you different. And then you start being proud of that. And you start appreciating like where you're from and how it informed you and how it made you who you are. And I don't know if that's going to be a theme of this comic, but it definitely is a theme in life.
Definitely.
So yeah, I guess to talk a little bit more about Rowan, for I love what you said, Chewie, about how like when you take away the things that make you who you are, you get depressed. And I love how it was so well described. Like I remember when he asked her out, he said, how could someone so as bright as you love someone as lifeless as me? And I think that's a big reason that he was attracted to her. And he said that to her. He said, you're so passionate, you know what you want out of life. And he was dead because he had cut himself off from the things that gave him life. And when you're like that, yeah, he was really drifting aimlessly. And like he had this bad reputation in the school of being like a jock and being, unmotivated and just being silly and frivolous. And that was what he turned to because he had, he's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I'm just going to give up basically. And I thought it was such a realistic reaction. And I'm loving how now the story is finally putting him in like the right path where he says, okay, I messed it up with Camille, but she taught him a lesson. Like she was an impetus for him to get back to himself and to find himself again. And yeah, what do you think of the girl at the comic book shop, right? Was it? Do you think there's gonna be something between them?
I was like, this is so soon. Like, bro, like he just got out of a relationship. But I guess it's the genre, but she's cute.
Yeah.
They might be more suited for each other. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not.
We saw her like once.
Yeah, right? They have one thing in common so far that we know of. It's not really very much. That's true, but. But
and I mean, they might work together now, so
right.
He needs to work on himself more though first.
Yes, that is such a major lesson. And if you want to talk about that, like working on yourself before getting into a relationship.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, you gotta just find yourself, because like my favorite quote is like, how are you gonna love someone else before you start loving yourself? Like, if you can't love yourself, how are you gonna love someone else? Like, it's such a major thing. Like, I can't emphasize it enough to like other people. Like, you need to love yourself first. You need to put emphasis on yourself, because you have to live with you for the rest of your life. So people will come and go, but like you're stuck with you, so you got to work on you.
And I think like Rohan really understood that, because he was like, dude, he literally said like, I like you like so much, but like I am just in such a bad place that like this is not working, and it's not on you, and I don't want to like keep dragging you along. So
Yep. Yeah, but I'm happy that he's like taking the steps to find himself and become a fuller person. So
I appreciate sorry.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that the comic shows that, kind of like you said earlier, Mindy, that even if not all of our relationships last or work out, we can still be influenced by the people that we have in our lives, not only romantically, but friendships or, classmates or teacher-student relationship, whatever it may be. So Camilla, even though she didn't understand his interest in like the violent stuff, and she didn't like it, she tried to be supportive, and she was like, if this is what you like, then go towards it. This is the most excited I've seen you talking about these things about anything before. So I really appreciated that he took that encouragement, even though he broke things off with her, he took that encouragement to go look into it again and reach back to it.
I hope that Camilla and Ron, like, they can become friends again, at least. I hope they can be friends again.
Right. Yeah. Just because their romantic relationship wasn't meant to be doesn't mean that they can't grow with each other as friends.
She was a good person for him.
Yeah.
That was like one of the things I was wary of, because one of the reasons why I didn't like the relationship like at first was because I was like, it's not her responsibility, and like this is the way it was framed for a while. Like I was like, it's not her responsibility to fix him. Like I understand that like couples are supposed to support each other and stuff, but like just like the way it was framed like initially, like made me like no, like you can't take all your problems out on her. Like she's not here to come in and like save you or fix you and all of that. And I'm glad it turned out the way it did, but I think that's why I was very apprehensive about their relationship for a while.
Yeah. So Chewie, I've been married for 12 years and it took me like till now to learn that you can't fix anyone else. And, you know, don't marry someone thinking you'll change them. Don't, you know, like at any point in your life, someone wants to fix themselves, they have to fix themselves. Nobody, you can't make anyone change. And yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, this is like high school, you know, it's about high schoolers, but the lessons are so applicable to everybody. I mean, I find it, I'm very much in awe of that lesson. One thing that also, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, Mindy, you've mentioned before that like people are attracted to each other for their good qualities, but like people are also attracted to for some negative traits also, maybe not as consciously, it's more subconscious. So like Krystine, you were saying earlier, you have to work on yourself so that you know what those things are and so you can be aware of them. One of my friends is a serial dater. She just like relationship to relationship to relationship. She's not been single for longer than like a few weeks in a really long time because she just like goes from one relationship to another, but they all turn out the same. And there's all these patterns and I just feel so bad for her because she just like can't see the patterns that are happening and like it's attracted to the same type of person over and over again. So it's hopefully a lesson for both Rohan and Camilla. Like maybe looking back one day they can see not only the positive things about each other, but also like, why did Camilla agree to it? Why was Rohan drawn to her? Stuff like that.
Right. You know, that's interesting. I think it's pretty clear why Rohan was drawn to her, because she had purpose in life and he didn't. So he kind of gravitated to that like a moth to the flame. I think he unconsciously realized he needed someone like that to give him life again and to inspire him, to set him on the right path. But for her, I think she said yes because she's kind of like a people pleaser. And she didn't want to say no. And like you said, it's her optimism also. She was like, well, why not? Like, let's try it, you know? And obviously there was the whole thing with like, she was interested in Victor, but then she assumed he wasn't interested in her. And so that pushed her towards Rohan as well. But you know what I found really interesting was that, and I never really experienced this myself because I didn't date much before I met my husband, but if she viewed him as a friend and that didn't change. And I think a lot of times, like people maybe try to shoehorn their feelings or make their feelings more than what they are because they really genuinely like the person and they care for them. But I think that kind of like, you know, when it's not the right one or when it's never going to become romantic. I don't know, because people also say that they went from friends to lovers as well. So I don't know. What do you think of that?
I had this was my freshman year in high school. We were in our high school musical together, and this guy, I don't even remember his name anymore, sorry. Guy,
how important he was.
yeah. But he, like, I would always like say hi to him. Like, we didn't have any classes together because he was an upperclassman, but like I was always nice to him. We would always chat and stuff. And then I come to find out that he liked me, and I was like, oh, like I never saw you like that. So like I said no. But like, yeah, like sometimes you just don't see it coming. Like you think you're being friendly and then all of a sudden like the other person's like, hey, I like you. And I'm like, whoa, what? But me and my fiance, we did start out as friends, and then we had class together, and then now we're engaged.
Oh,
That's cute. What class?
Filipino class, Tagalog class. We both are Filipino and we both do not speak it.
well, not even after that class, huh?
I mean, I can understand it and I speak it like very brokenly. If I speak it, it's mostly to like my parents, specifically my mom, but him is like not at all.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts on like sometimes you know that it's not destined to be, but okay. Fine. So another thing, sorry, I'm like, whatever. I really have a different lab, but it's somewhere. I don't know where it is. So another thing that I liked was that Camille mentioned, the fact that Camille's parents struggle financially and that impacts her, and she has to try to raise money herself and she's not sure if she'll be able to continue. As someone who has always been what's the word I guess money challenged, I did not grow up in a well-to-do home at all. My parents always struggled with money. Neither my husband and I are very, I like to say we're not into money, so that's why, but we never focus on it at all, and as a result our life reflected that. So I very much related to that. And I think that like sometimes financial struggles are not talked about enough, but they're a huge part of life and a huge source of stress for people. So, and it's interesting to see it from the perspective of the daughter, right? Because she's not responsible for earning money, but she and her siblings do want to help out, which my parents never asked us to help out, which is interesting. But she mentions, she's like, oh, my parents. Another thing I found interesting was that she mentions that her parents are immigrants and that, the older siblings like, oh, we have a different culture. And that I definitely can relate to. My mom was Israeli, and different kinds of things with what Camilla seems to be facing. But definitely like there's a difference when your parent is not from the country, and like there's culture differences.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a huge source of frustration for Camilla throughout her life, because part of her enthusiasm in trying new things is, yay, it's fun, it's a new thing, but also like she can't stick with something for super long because they can't afford to stick with it for long term. So part of the reason why it was like so devastating for her to break up with Rohan was because it was like, it's another thing that I can't have. That's not his fault. It's another thing that I'm messing up, that I'm screwing up, that I'm losing. She has like so much familiarity with losing things.
Yeah, that was it. I really like that. I felt for her when she said that, because it's interesting, because that also could be, sometimes we have reasons for sticking with things that are different than what you would expect. And for Camilla, yeah, that could be an important motivation for her. It's like, oh, I want something to work out in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys have anything else we want to say about Camilla before we move on to the next character?
I love her.
Just real quick. Oh, I know,
Yes.
it's so cute.
I'm like the trope of like cutting off your hair and like, I'm starting fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I guess going off of on talking about her parents are super busy trying to find working a lot. And so they all, like the whole family works together as a unit, but she hardly sees her parents. I think also it adds to Camilla's frustration and stress, and makes my heart hurt for her. It's nobody's fault. It's another part of the financial trouble that people have. A lot of people have to work a lot and they can't spend as much time with their family as they would like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a year when I did not see my kids at all, except for like Sabbath when I don't work. But I was literally at work or school every other hour. I would come home like earliest was 11 and latest was 2. It was like insane. I can't quantify the worst year of my life because it's hard to say that, but probably pretty close to the worst year, because I was working or in school all the time and I was never home. It was just awful. So yes, I'm sure my kids did not enjoy that year either.
Yeah. My dad was in the Navy for he did the full like 20 years, so he was gone for like most of the time. Like he would come home on weekends, if that, and then my mom was always working, even working overtime, so like I barely saw my parents like growing up. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Victor, who wants to talk about Victor and his personality?
Oh, he's rough around the edges, but he's a softie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to keep talking, but like I guess a lot of the high school, okay, let me think. I just started 5 sentences at the same time. Hold on, let me back up. So the comic is about high school students, and a significant part of being a high school student is your relationship with your parents and your friends and stuff. But Victor also has issues with his parents. He doesn't live with his parents, but we don't find that out until like a while into the comic. I mean, he's not the main character, but yeah, it makes me really sad for him that his parents are so intense with him about trying to be so good at music that he like doesn't even enjoy it most of the time anymore is like a huge source of stress for him.
Yeah, and in this last episode, the most recent one that just came out, was his dad is like downright is abusive. Like until now,
The
we were like,
episode
okay,
might have come out yet. I think the new one came out just now because it's like
I know, yeah, it just did. I think as we were preparing.
I read it before this, and I'm like,
yeah, that's the line. I mean, before that, you could say maybe okay, he's just a pressuring dad, but no, this is flat out abusive. So I'm happy Victor doesn't live with his parents, because I'm sure living with his parents is worse. His aunt and uncle are so sweet and loving and accepting. I mean, Mrs. P. 𝗏𝗏𝗀, I think, just such a wonderful person in so many ways, and she has a great character. She's supportive. She's there for them, but I have to say also, I love how she's not flat. She's not like everything's amazing. Like she gets stressed out also. She sometimes is a little snappy at the students. She's like worried about the future of the band. She cries to her husband. You know, she's a fully fleshed out character too.
Love her.
Yeah, which is, I think it's also a big lesson, because I know, especially for when you're younger and you look at adults as like these infallible creations, you know, they're like, they know everything, or they're perfect. I mean, either you hate them, like you're like, oh, the adults, they suck, or like, you know, or you're like, you think you idolize them. And then you grow up, and I don't know about you, like at some point I looked around and I'm like, oh my God, we're the adults. Like, no, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not, like, we're human beings. Like we have our good days, we have our bad days. You know, I have times where I'm irritated at my kids for no good reason, just with my personal reasons, nothing to do with them. You know, and like, yeah, Mrs. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀, like, yeah, she's a wonderful person, but she's also human. You know, she has her struggles and her stresses and her doubts. So I'd like to see that reality. But anyway, I don't want to talk more about Victor and like his relationship with music, because I find that very interesting, because it's also not simple.
I can relate to Victor in that sense, because so my relationship with music is kind of weird too, because it was almost forced upon me. Like, because so my mom is a PK, or a preacher's kid. So she grew up like, my grandpa was a pastor, and she grew up like, you know, having to sing in church and all that stuff. And so what happens, I had to sing in church. I had to do all that stuff. And so it's kind of like, no, you will do this. You have to do this. Sing at, like, you know, sing for your auntie, sing at the karaoke at the party. Like, why won't you sing, blah, blah, blah. So I have this weird dynamic with music in that sense. Well, with me singing in particular, I'm very like about it. So I can totally relate to that.
Do you have love for singing though?
I do. I love it. I love especially like singing in the car. But like, if you ask me to like perform in front of, I'm like, no, I'm okay, thanks. Like the most I will do is like karaoke with like friends, but I'm like, even then I'm like, I will half-ass it.
Do you think it would have been different if you hadn't had that pressure placed on you?
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's what I also find interesting about Victor with music, because, you know, he says that he started out loving it, and then because of all the pressure, he kind of grew to associate it with just stress and, you know, anxiety and ambition. And, you know, he has that whole line with his Rosalind, right? This girl at Ashmont, right? So he used to go to Ashmont, and that's like a special school for performing arts or whatever. And then he was kicked out. Apparently he wasn't good enough. And he's here at Claremont, right? And that's like, he has this whole complex where it's like, oh, this is like a trashy school, and they're not really serious about music here. And which is also a very interesting lesson about like snobbery, because not everyone's a snob. I think I was definitely born a snob, and it's something I work on every single day of my life. It's very deeply embedded, let's just say. But I have a very strong value to not be snobby, so like it's always in conflict. But you know, Victor's a snob, and he looks around and he's like, they're not serious about music. They just want to play around and fool around. And that's a very interesting that Camilla, on one hand, does teach him, she tells him, she's like, what, you don't like music anymore? I'll have to teach you to have fun. And they have this little fun music lesson after he does his serious music lesson. And what I like about this story is that it isn't black or white thinking, because life is not all about having fun. But there's two elements. There's the Camille side, like you have to have fun. And then there's Victor, like you have to, be good at it. And like, obviously it's all a balance. Like you can't, like, you have to choose what you're going to be good at and what you're going to be like not good at and mediocre at. And then you also have to know when to have fun. And it's such a perfect mix, because it's, a lot of people like to advocate for their side. Like if you're like a type A personality, then, for you, life is all about achievement. You're like, you have to achieve. Like my brother's very much like this. He can be very annoying. He's younger. He's like 10 years younger than me. So whatever, hopefully we'll chalk it off to age, but he reminds me of myself when I was younger. Very much like very high pressure, very stressed. Like everything has to be perfect. Like he's, when he works out, that's one of his interests. He's like beyond buff. Like he can do crazy things with his body. Like he can, hold himself by his hands and do all these crazy stuff. So he's very, very motivated, and he gets very far, but he also can be a little bit of an asshole, like to be around, because he's very judgy and he judges everyone and he expects you to reach his standards. So like he judges everyone around him. And, I was like that a lot. I don't think I was I was also a lot more drifty. So I never even reached the levels he does, like I never sat down there and like, I was much more like Camille. Like I was interested in a lot of things and I just like kind of floated around. So I was judgy without being good at anything. But anyway, so there's like those kind of people who were like, life is all about achievement, AA, like that kind of had. And then there's, the Camille side, which is actually not really Camille, because she is dedicated. But there's people who are like, no, life's about enjoying yourself. Life's about having fun. And both of them have a point. And I'm glad that the story doesn't say, hey, it's just this or it's just that. It's very balanced. And it's hard to figure that out. Even like every person has to struggle with that at different points in their life.
Mm-hmm.
I know if you guys have thoughts on
I
that.
listened to an interview with Paul McCartney, and he was kind of talking about this, and the interviewer was asking him like, how do you still have motivation? How do you still like, come up with new song ideas and stuff? And like, what's your process like? And he was like, well, you don't work music, you play music. So he like, explained that, it's supposed to be a fun thing. It's supposed to be something that like brings you joy, hopefully. And I don't blame Victor for losing the joy with music because of the environment he grew up in, because of the pressure he had, not only from his dad, but from the previous school. It's a really, if you're trying to be a professional musician, like a performing musician, it is so high pressure. There are so many people who are trying to be a professional singer or a professional trumpet player or a professional, horn player. There's a lot of competition. So you kind of need to have the dedication and the focus. But, it's still a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder where Victor will end up. Like, I don't know how long in the future the comic is planning on going. Like, I don't know if we'll, go into adulthood, but it would be really interesting to see what Victor chooses as an adult to do with his life.
Mm-hmm. He could be a teacher.
What?
He could be a teacher. He's a really good teacher so far.
I don't know, like he doesn't talk about what he wants to do. He hasn't really addressed that, I think, because, Camille's just trying to teach him, oh, like you should like music again. But he hasn't really, I don't think he's thought about what he wants to do in the future for himself. I don't think that's something that he's done yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm forgetting something.
I don't think so.
I don't know that he has the capacity to think that far ahead yet, because he's so focused on finishing high school and what's going to happen next year. Is he going to stay at Claremont? Is he going to go back to Ashcroft? What was it? Whatever it's called.
Ash something.
People are yelling at me. Hold on. Let me go look it up. Okay, continue.
I did write it down. Hold on. I made a whole list. Yeah, that's a big thing for him. Ashcroft. It's Ashcroft. Where is my stuff? Hold on. Ashmont. Let's see here. I might have been writing it down wrong the whole time, but I think it's Ashmont. Yeah. I have it in my notes as Ashmont, so let's assume it's that. So yeah, that's a big thing for him because what do you think he feels about 𝗪𝗲𝗻? Because he had like a negative experience there, but he wants to go back. And I mean, I think we know it's pretty clear why.
He just holds it. Yeah, it's like his, his, oh my God, that's the school I'm supposed to go to. Like, that's the end goal. So I don't know.
I just confirmed it's 𝗪𝗲𝗻𝗃.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Laura.
He didn't really seem to have, other than Rosalind, like, we don't know about any other relationships he had at the school, but he didn't seem to enjoy his time or connect with anyone except for Rosalind. So he feels immense pressure to go back, but I don't know that he necessarily wants to.
I don't like the vibe I'm getting from Rose.
Yeah, let's
like that
Yeah.
small interaction we got with like after the concert and Camilla broke down and stuff, like, and like Victor and Rose like had that confrontation for like 5 seconds. Like, it just felt like she was baiting him. Like, I don't think she's a good influence on him because like you could clearly tell that like Camilla messed up and Victor like impromptu just like came in and tried to fix things as much as he could. And she definitely knew that. And she still was like, oh, I guess you're not as good as me. Like, look at you. And like, I don't know where she has this like superiority complex from, but I don't think it's healthy for Victor. And it's kind of like abusive / toxic relationships that like you want to prove your worth to them, even though it shouldn't be like worth your time. So I feel like that's why Victor wants to go back, because it's like, I can be better, like blah, all of that. Like, it's just like she makes him feel so like especially bad about himself. That's why he keeps wanting to go back and to prove himself, even though if it hurts him in the long run, which it obviously is.
Oh, I thought that was so well said. That sounded really, I mean, definitely what she said at the end, it sounded very toxic and very nasty. One thing though, like I wonder, do you think there's a romantic relationship, or there was romantic interest? Because she did give him that little charm, and if you remember, like the little horn charm, and he keeps seeing her as like this beautiful girl, sorry, they're in high school, sorry, with like this curly hair, whatever. Do you think there was romantic interest?
I think on his side.
Yeah, I don't think they could have been in a relationship, they could have not been. I'm not putting any bets. My guess is that he had feelings for her and she knew it, and she like used it to kind of lead him on and be like, give herself an ego trip or something. I don't want to judge her too harshly, but literally everything we've gotten about her is negative. And we're like quite far into this, almost 100 episodes. So like, I think I'm a little fair to be like, no, you're not a good person.
Yeah, I mean, they're still in high school. So I remember when I was in high school, I did not know how to communicate very well. And my high school boyfriend did not know how to communicate very well. So when we had a conflict, he ghosted me. just left. And that's kind of what Victor did to Rosalind. Like, I just was rereading through, preparing for tonight. And one of like the last text conversations that he got from her was like, you couldn't tell me? Like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me what was going on? And like, maybe, I don't know, who knows what the relationship was like? We don't know a whole lot, but we can assume that they were at least friends. And maybe to have him withhold something that was whatever it was, felt like, well, did you think we were not as good friends as we were? And then like he gets a text from her in the middle of the school year and he deletes it. Well, it's her inviting him to go see her perform. So that's probably really emotional. So yeah. Not saying that Victor is like a saint or whatever, not saying that she's an evil witch, but like there's probably just, it's hard to communicate. These relationships, people, they're learning how to communicate.
And Victor especially is not communicative, okay? Compared to the other characters.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Victor, he's hilarious. I love Victor, by the way. He's such a cutie pie. I don't know if I don't know if like if he was a grown up, if I would be into Victor, but like he's such a sweetie. Like I feel for him, you know, like oh.
I
I can
also
fix him, guys.
wait, what was that, Chewie?
I can fix him.
Oh, yeah, I can fix him, guys. No, but I was gonna touch on his character design too. I like that I like also not only the variety of character designs that we get in Brass and Sass, but like the fact that he has arm hair, like he's a hairy guy.
Armpit hair also.
Yeah.
In the shower.
Yeah.
First time I've seen armpit hair in webtoons ever. Have you ever seen armpit hair in webtoons?
No, Laura doesn't have armpit hair.
Nobody has hair in webtoons.
Yeah.
We're born shaven, you know.
So yeah, I like that part of him. I don't know why.
It's
just like, and I feel like it contrasts him very nicely, his character design and his personality, because his hair is like a mess, but it's cute, it's endearing, and like the arm hair like gives him a more natural, real feeling compared to like the way he used to act, which is like very controlled and like posh and all of that. So I feel like it was intentional to like give like, like to show that he's not, this like posh asshole. He's like this, he's just like a kid. But I feel like that's the character design was done intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did notice his hair. I never thought about like what it would mean for his character, but I'll give it some thought now afterwards.
Because like, why wouldn't it be like slicked back or like done in a ponytail or something like very trimmed or like something good so it doesn't get in the way of like performing or whatever? But instead it's given a lot of personality and volume, which I thought really is nice, especially because his like build is like very skinny and like that too. So like the hair gives it more personality, I guess.
Yeah, I think it shows like teenage awkwardness, and like Laura, what you were saying, like these are teenagers. I mean, high school, like, yes, it's true. We get a negative impression of Rosalind now, but we don't know the full story. And yeah, they're teenagers. Like they're really, they're in the middle of growing up. And, one thing that this comic also does nicely is there's no villain in the comic. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if we're going to get Rosalind's story, if she's going to become a character who's important enough. But I wouldn't be surprised if the author does give us a full character for her, and we'll get to know her and understand her and be more sympathetic to her. Because I don't know if you want to segue into Beth, but Beth in the beginning, we didn't get such a good vibe from her. She seemed jealous. She seemed like competitive. She seemed to be like putting Camilla down. But then lo and behold, she turned out to be a wonderful character with her own struggles, and that made her behave that way. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get kind of some more.
I'm expecting it because I feel like, especially in the next season, like we need to like see what happened with Victor and like his like the whole Ashmont thing, like because we got like different glimpses, but I feel like for the story to really progress, like we do need a confrontation with Rose, especially for Victor to like move on. Like he does need to confront her and stuff like that. So I am expecting her backstory to come soon. I can't wait because I feel like she's like one of those characters that we've been waiting for. It's like kind of like Age Matters, where like there were certain characters that like for a really long time we didn't get backstories of, but when they did, it like made sense. So
yeah, so let's talk about Beth. Who wants to talk about her and what her personality is, her struggles are?
I hated Beth in the beginning. I could not stand her. I was like, she's getting in the way of our ship. Like, go away. Why are you so jealous? But then, like, I think it was the episode when she started talking about her like playing the piano and how she gets like it feels like she's drowning when she has to like perform. I related to that so much, and I was like, okay, you got me. You are me, I am you. I got you, girl.
I love her.
Yeah, I love her now.
That drowning, like what you did with your hands, Laura. I mean, it's such a perfect like illustration, like literally illustration of how she feels. Can't say I've ever felt that way. I've never been like a stage fright kind of person, and never so like whatever, but it's like, whoa, it's so visceral, that feeling. And one of my proudest moments was when Beth overcame that, when she, after Rohan stormed out and of the party, and he was upset at Camille. Beth, wanted to confront him. She felt like she was drowning, but she pushed it down. She said, I'm doing this. I got to tell him. And, she told him this whole wonderful line about, you are relying on Camilla too much. And that was based on her experience, which was amazing. Like, she was into Victor. He was not into her back. He was into Camilla without really recognizing it, which is another thing. And, and she was so mature. I mean, she went through a lot. Like, she started out, it must be so tough to have unrequited love. And the way she handled that was amazing. I was so impressed. Like, she really was accepted it. Victor's not into her. And I'm going to be able to move on, which, I mean, I don't know how adults handle that. And she's like a teenager handling that. I'm so impressed.
I really feel like it shows her true strength of character, because like, honestly, to be able to do that, like, I don't think like Camilla or like Victor could even be able to do that. Like, I feel like Beth is uniquely equipped to do that. Like, she has a lot of like inner strength that we didn't see for a really long time, but I'm glad we saw her. She's like one of my favorite characters now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know, because Camilla, when she thought that Victor was rejecting her at the pool, and he was like, "You're my student," she was like, "Oh, okay, we're nothing else. You're just my teacher. You're just my tutor. Okay, so I guess I'll go be with Rohan." Like, oh, whatever. So that was her way of dealing with it, which is not the healthiest way. But I think Beth was able to handle that rejection so well, partly because of Camilla, because Camilla was like, hey. I know we both like the same dude, but like, did he reject you? He's so stupid. Why would he do that? She just like was really trying to cheer her up. And even though Beth was like confused, like, what are you doing? And not really trusting Camilla's intentions or what her actions, but their friendship is so sweet. It's
So sweet.
I want to be her
So
friend. It's so
wholesome.
Yeah, and it was really, really healthy for her to have other people than just Victor. So yeah, like you said, Mindy, she was able to recognize that her behavior to just clinging to Victor was unhealthy and was not helpful for her. And so she was able to recognize that in herself, so she could talk to Rohan about it. Oh boy, the insight of these teenagers is so impressive to me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in high school and not having this level of insight at all.
Yeah. I can't even remember what I thought. I mean, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, and the courage it took for her to say that to him. It's hard to, it's, what was it? Dumbledore said it to Neville Longbottom, that it's one thing to stand up to your enemies, but it's even harder to stand up to your friends. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't her friend, I would say, but it's so hard to tell people critical feedback about them, and he was not in a good mood at all. Like, no. He was not receptive.
I would not have.
Very unhappy.
I'll be like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna walk away now.
But it took a lot of courage for her to do that, and she did. And
she's a very strong character, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about the pressure that she deals with, and that it's a reason that she and Victor connected so much, because she has a mom who is also extremely, like, puts a ton of pressure on her, disregards her daughter's inherent interests. Like, Beth obviously likes to draw, and her mom thinks it's a waste of time and berates her for that. And it's just like, oh my gosh. I got very upset when I saw the mom treating her that way. Yeah, so what actually,
oh, go ahead, Mindy.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, especially when Beth was like, I've already done all my practicing. I've done all my homework. I have like 20 minutes of free time. Isn't it okay that I draw? She's like, you should use that to practice more. Like, that's unrealistic. That's so unhealthy. You need, your brain needs a break from stuff sometimes.
And that was so interesting when she said, I want to quit. Like, I thought, like, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. But like, I feel like, especially if she's gonna quit, Victor won't. Like, I think he'll still continue down that path, just so that, like, they have that juxtaposition, because I think it seems like Beth, like, of course she probably likes it in a way, like, there's something very fulfilling about playing an instrument, but it's not for everybody. And I think especially like her saying I want to quit was like she didn't even realize that that's what she wanted until she said it in that moment. So like, I'm honestly just really glad that I think now I don't think we got anything with her after that, after she said that, but I think that now she'll be more aware of what she wants and will probably like, I don't know if her mom will let her quit, but I hope she does so that she can become like 𝗵𝗲𝗍.
And, you know, that's a very interesting thing because, you know, you said you were talking about like, how much does she like it? Sometimes like you could like it and it's great, but then all the circumstances around it make you not like it. Like if her mom hadn't pressured her, maybe she would have continued music for God knows how long. But it could be that now for the rest of her life, she'll never touch a piano or whatever. Sorry, piano. She'll never touch an instrument again because of her mom's pressure. So too much could, you know, make you crack and backfire.
Mm-hmm.
Did you also want to talk about the mom, the reasoning the mom uses? Because if I recall correctly, the mom tells her, you know, I'm giving you opportunities that I never had, and that's why you have to pursue that. So what do you think of that?
Talk about like all of like, well, in my experience, all of like Filipino immigrant parents, that is exactly it to a T.
Yeah.
It's like, I came to this country to give you opportunities so that you can go to college, so that you can, you know, get your degrees. Did I do that? No.
It's the projection. It's not cool at all.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's funny because, you know, I relate to some of that in a way, because I definitely, you know, my kids are growing up differently than I grew up. Like when I was growing up, I never thought that I would go to college. I never thought that I could have a career. Those were just not options where I was from. And I fought very hard to have those options. And, you know, now my kids have that. But I have to say, like, I'm not that kind of pressuring parent, because specifically I know what it was like to rebel against my parents and to disappoint my parents, and, you know, to have them want a path for me that I didn't want for myself. So ever since I went through that as a teenager, I was like, no, I'm not doing that to my kids. My kids are going to have their own life, and I'm not going to pressure them, and like they do whatever they want. But, you know, I can see myself, like, theoretically I could be like, yeah, I could tell I could have theoretically been the kind of person who tells my kid, hey, you know, you have the opportunity to go to college, and I didn't. I mean, I did, but whatever. Let's simplify it. You know, I could see myself being that, but have this be or not. But like, I can understand, like, if a parent, you know, really worked hard and it was like a major thing for them, I can see where they would be disappointed. It's like, you're throwing away the opportunities that I gave you. But yeah, I don't think this justifies Mrs. Swang, I think her name is.
Huang, I think.
Yeah. It's one thing to like give your kid opportunities, and it's another thing to push them into it.
Yep.
I think it's interesting too that a lot of the kids are children of immigrants. Like, I feel like that's a really interesting theme, because not all of the parents do, but quite a few of them do a lot of projection onto their kids. And I think that's why their kids struggle with not having this strong sense of identity. I mean, they're also kids, but I think on top of that, like, because their parents have like tried to mold them to become whatever they want them to become, like, they don't understand why, like, this path that they were put on, that they think that they want, isn't working. And it's like really sad to see them blame themselves too for it. Like, they're also hard on themselves, and I'm like, bruh.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually what you said. Another thing that I love about this comic, the fact that they're hard on themselves, to me, it indicates a sign of people who care, and who care about their choices in life. And that to me is the strength of this comic, that I haven't really seen in so many others, which is the concern with doing the right thing. And that was something that, the way I grew up, that was like the number one thing that my parents instilled in us, is like, do the right thing, be a good person, do the right thing. And the thing that I love is that everyone here is trying to do the right thing and is trying to be a good person. And especially Camilla, that's her strength. Like, she's such a nice, kind, generous, giving person. And she always tries to do the right thing by her parents, by her friends, to her family, her siblings. And she's just always a good, like, she's just trying to make good choices. And I love that focus on morality and on doing the right thing. I love it, because I also think it's the most important thing in life. And I just love that you know, the story focuses on that.
Mm-hmm.
What else did we just need to discuss? Oh, well, we didn't discuss a big one, Victor and Camilla's romance or lack thereof. Their complete like lack of timing, like ship sailing in the night. And Victor being totally
so cute though.
Yeah, who wants to talk about it?
I'm like, it'll happen eventually, but right now they're just going like two different directions.
They're so cute. They're adorable.
Like they're heading like the same direction, but in like different ways. Like just, I'm like, eventually they'll.
I'm excited to see it like come back. Yeah, how that'll happen.
I love the fact that like Victor now knows that like Camilla had a crush on him, and he's like,
his reaction, he was like, oh my God.
Like,
I forgot that he didn't know that Camilla liked her at one point. Like, I guess I just assumed at some point that he knew, but you know, oh, whoops. Now I realize that, oh, he didn't know.
No, he didn't know.
It's so funny.
And now he's like, are you serious?
And then when Beth was like, I think she just likes you platonically now, he was just like not listening. He was in his head. It was so funny.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have accepted it. Like, even if he would have known she liked him, he was in denial of his feelings for her. He took a long time to understand that. I mean, Camilla recognized her crush on him early, and she was kind of hesitant. She wasn't sure if she liked him or his music, which I thought was fascinating. But she at least recognized like she was into him. But Victor was so like clueless. And he's like, what's this feeling? When I see her in Rohan, I just feel hurt inside. I don't know why.
Oh, it's so bad. Oh, I hated looking at it. I was like, y'all are dumb.
Right? We're like, we can tell you have a crush on her, Victor. So cute.
Yeah, he didn't know that Beth liked him, and she was so obvious.
Yeah. So obvious.
Yeah. But I think it comes back to what we were talking about before, like all the pressure he had on himself really put him in his head. He like was not aware. Yeah, tunnel vision kind of. Yeah. So he just like was kind of oblivious to anything that wasn't his studies, music. Like he wasn't really conscious of the people around him. So it's really sweet to see him like, oh, wait, what? Coming around.
What was I doing? He was literally like, I want to strangle my past self. And I was like, that was literally me, because like very frustrating, but very endearing.
It's like we all wanted to strangle you. You were a little much.
He's not the most socially adept character. He's just not. Like, he's very rude to Camilla in the beginning. He only has one friend, Beth, like also in the beginning. Like, even now, like he's thought out a little bit, but I don't think he really has other friends, you know? Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of it maybe because of what he's been experiencing, but, you know, not everyone has the most socially adept, you know, personality. And yeah, we started out saying he's rough around the edges. Yeah, he is. Maybe that's why he has the arm here, you know?
I'm like, that's my fiance. He is not the most sociable person in the world, but and I'm not like a social butterfly either, but I'm compared to him, I have so many friends. He has like this many.
Yeah.
For some people that's okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chewie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know if it's webtoons or if it's like stories in general, whether it's movies or TV. Like, do we tend to get it about more like socially swayed characters, like characters who are very popular and have good personality, like easy personalities? I'm trying to figure out if Victor is an anomaly. Not, you know, the fact that he's social awkward, but we don't even notice it. Like, I don't know, he's so lovable. You don't even like notice that he's not so good with people.
Well, he also kind of talks about it like he was not expecting to stay at Claremont for more than a year. So he was like, what's the point? I'm not going to be here next year. Like, why would I try to make friends? So maybe, and now he like is wanting to stay. And now that he's opening himself up to the people, like he is telling people now that Mrs. Petracki is Petresky. Mrs. P is his aunt. Yeah.
Mhm.
And had people over to help get ready for, the concert and stuff. Yeah. So he's like making steps. And now that he's opened himself up, he wants to stay. He's made connections.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Because I think he isn't sure of what he wants now, right? Whether he wants to go back to Ashmont or stay there. Any guesses?
I feel
I
like
know what's gonna happen, and he's not going back to his dad's house because screw that. Oh my God.
Mm-mm. I feel like Mrs. P will fight tooth and nail for him.
Mhm. That's also another important issue. I had a kid in my high school class who had an abusive father, and she, for much of her life, she lived with her grandparents because her father was such a horrible person. And everyone in the class knew she lived with her grandparents. I don't think everyone knew about her father. I did, because she was one of my closer friends. Not a super close friend, but she was one of my friends. And yeah, it's a thing that kids deal with, and thank God that Victor has better people in his life to live with, and to get him out of that situation, because sometimes it's very good not to live with your parents. A lot of times parents have this thing where they're like, oh, I gave birth to you, so you owe me, and you have to be there for me. And no, if your parent is abusive, you do not owe them. You don't have to give up your life to accommodate them. And sometimes the best situation is not to live with your parents, no matter how guilty they may make you feel for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, any other thoughts about anything in Brass and Sass?
Oh, we were going to talk about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is gorgeous. My favorite one is, I was listening to it before we started recording. I forgot what it was called. It's Violet something. It was the one where I think Beth started feeling like she was drowning. I think it was that music. That one just like without words describes exactly what she's feeling.
Oh, I was happy you brought it up, and I can't believe I forgot that. But yeah, it's a major part of the story, especially since it's very music focused. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the tracks are very light, and they're so perfect for Brass and Sass because they have this happy, light feel, and again, deceptive, right? Because it's deceptively a light comic and happy and sweet, but then there's all these heavy, serious themes done without being depressing, right? We just talked about really serious topics, but it's not heavy. You don't leave depressed, you don't leave anxious. It's always very positive. Mm-hmm. And the tracks are like that too. To me, they're always very calming and soothing and happy.
Because it gives you a sense it's gonna work out in the end, so you don't have to be as anxious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing I like about this comic too. I'm very much a happy endings person, so I'm yes, I think all the happy endings.
And again,
everyone works out, and everyone finds the right thing in life, and everyone makes choices. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think I need Brass and Sass and stories like that, especially in contrast to 𝗷𝗵𝗲𝗑𝗍. And 𝗷𝗵𝗲, people die, people make mistakes for 50 years, people don't change. It's very realistic in that way. And so sometimes you need a story that'll be it sucks, but it'll work out in the end. You'll find your true love, you'll do all this.
Yeah. How long do you think Brass and Sass is going to follow them into? Do you think it'll be through their high school, or do you think it'll get a little farther?
For the genre, I assumed it would be the end of high school, but I would love to see them later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking high school too.
Yeah.
I
think high school, and then hopefully we get a little epilogue with them, maybe in college or something. That'd be cute.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, so what else you have about Brass and Sass? Did we miss anything?
No. We hit everything.
Okay. We could also do some pause for thinking time. But yeah, I guess we could end with our favorite thing about Brass and Sass. I know I probably said that already. Okay. Mine was that it's so positive and so optimistic, and that everyone is trying to do the right thing. And it's just a very wholesome approach to life. Wholesome. That's it. That's the word. Yeah. What's your favorite thing about Brass and Sass? And we'll end with that.
I guess my favorite thing is Camilla's earnestness, her sincerity, and her excitement for life. She's so honest about like the things she really loves, and it's just like just wholeheartedly loves it, and it makes me so happy.
Oh, that is beautiful. And when you see that, that also like inspires you, you know, anyone who's around that kind of person.
It's
just,
very
like,
charming.
Go on, yeah.
Yeah.
So Krystine, Chewie, what's your favorite thing?
I love how well-rounded all the characters are. Like, and I like how like even characters that I didn't like in the beginning, like we see a different side of them, or like characters that, well, like we just get, they're just so well-rounded. Like I love that Ron has like, you know, weight, like had weight issues and that affects him. I like that Bethany has, you know, just can't, like she gets nervous like performing in front of people. Like it's so well-rounded. Like there's they're onions, they have layers.
Yeah, the story is just so well told, and I think like shouts out to the creator. Like it's really like her like way of telling the story that makes it really magical. I personally love like all the themes it touches on. I mean, like I am literally in the age group that these kids are in too, so like this sort of stuff always hits a little closer to home. Even like other comics that are around like these sorts of things. So like I think I just appreciate it for where I am right now in my life, and like comics like this, like I like them because we're not the only ones with identity crises. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this was great. It was such a pleasure to discuss Brass and Sass and like get to talk about it. You know, it's like there's so much to say. Well, so thank you so much. And yeah, I'm excited to keep up with the story and see what happens with them and all the little
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you, Chewie.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye.
Night, ladies.
Bye.
Thank you so much to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libris, Lily, Jenny, Haley, Maria, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Jo, Rochelle, Saucy Tuggles, Meg, Ann Rose, Priya, Alexa, Misty, Laura, Joanne, Patty, Jen, Imelda, Esther, I'm Watching You, Taurus, Poppy Seed, Marie, Jen, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, D, Kate, Lily, Beckett, and Miranda. Your support is truly appreciated.